Hello, everybody. Welcome to Boston's Titletown Talk. This is your host, Josh Brown. Got my co-host here, Joe Chancellor. Just got off an 8-hour-long shift. How you feeling there, Joe?
Very beat, but that's not going to stop me from talking the greatest Boston sports around.
Yeah, so obviously this week has been a big week for us as far as like the Celtics go. We've gotten a ton of hits on all of our Celtics stories. Celtics offseason, it's on the forefront of everybody's mind. Do you have any launching off points you want to kind of go into?
Yeah, actually, so far we're into our second week of pre-draft workouts. We got a lot of big stars coming in. Well, I wouldn't say stars per se, but a lot of promising young kids looking to make a name for themselves in the league. And yeah, we'll just have to wait and see come draft day and how the next few weeks turn around.
Yeah, I mean, and the big story to me is, and this is kind of where we're going to launch off today. It's this whole Derek Fisher being brought in to coach the New York Knicks. And to me, I've read quite a few articles on it actually this morning, and the general consensus seems to be out there that this doesn't really alter what Carmelo Anthony is going to ultimately do or ultimately decide as far as his future goes. I disagree with that. I do. I disagree with that wholeheartedly, and I think everyone that wrote that's an idiot. So, quote it.
Quote that.
Basically, everyone on ESPN New York, they wrote, he's got the pull around the league. He's got 5 championship rings. I think Phil Jackson was quoted as, well, when we introduce Derek Fisher as to Carmelo Anthony, we'll just make sure he's wearing those 5 rings. You know what I mean? And it's all just kind of a ploy to basically throw out there that this guy is well-trusted, well-liked, and none of that I doubt. None of that I doubt. And I know that you've had probably some experience around Derek Fisher, and I know that you can probably attest to that.
I can, yeah, for sure. I mean, for all those years he's been with the Lakers, him and Phil Jackson both winning all those championships back in the early 2000s during the Laker dynasty. He does have the attention of a lot of people. Like, he's a point guard. He's a very intelligent basketball player. He's got a very good mindset, gets all of his teammates in the right place, including his last few years with the Thunder on a young team.
Yeah, and so they obviously signed him to, I think it's a 5-year deal worth. Did you catch that?
I actually did not catch that. I know they were finalizing it last.
It was a big deal. It was a huge deal for a coach, and obviously it's a good move for Fisher because you get to go into one of the biggest media markets. You get to make a name for yourself. Obviously, you have Phil Jackson, who he's got a really great relationship with. A
familiar face.
And I know that you're all probably listening and being like, what the hell are these guys talking about the New York Knicks for? I'm telling you that this means that Carmelo Anthony is not re-signing there.
Yeah, I mean, there's even been discussions even before, like the whole head coaching debacle, that Carmelo was definitely going to consider opting out with the Knicks. The only reason why he would probably stay with the Knicks because, Lala's there. He won't leave Lala.
Yeah, well, Lala can come with them.
She can come to Boston.
Move to Boston, baby. Because I wrote an article earlier this week, and it was Rondo, Love, Anthony, the next big 3.
That sounds like a pretty formidable big 3 right there.
That big 3, and I made the point in the article, I think that big 3 could take on the Miami Heat big 3 this next upcoming season.
This could be the fireworks that all of us Boston folks are really hoping for.
And it's just amazing to me because I think that everybody's kind of saying, well, you got to pump the brakes on that a little bit because, and I agree, obviously, These are 3 high-caliber players, and you're talking about Boston stinking, literally, being horrible for one season, acquiring all these assets, which Danny Ainge has done a great job of. I mean, if there's anything that this guy deserves kind of praise for, it's how many draft picks can one person get in 1 year? It's incredible. It really is incredible, and I don't want to go into it any more than to say that guy's a freaking god. He could just really pull, he just pulls stuff right out of his keister. And I love it. But anyways, so you're talking about Rondo, who doesn't like to shoot. right? And let's just talk about, let's just break this down a little bit. I mean, Rondo's not the best shooter. He doesn't love to shoot. What he loves to do is distribute.
He likes to distribute. He likes to pass. But, I mean, he did improve as a shooter this past season. That's mainly because when you're recovering from an ACL surgery, all you can do is just shoot and not even jump. All you can do is just work on your form. And he's done that actually a lot better this year than the last few years I've seen him.
And so let's hope he keeps that up. But at the same time, you know where his heart really lies. It's in that,
where he's so
that
good
beloved assist. He loves
so
it.
Good
he
at.
loves double-doubles that include 10 assists and 10 points. You know what I mean? He loves it. He loves the assist.
That's where he thrives.
But Love and Anthony, now, they're not assist guys.
They're
both alpha scorers.
They're scorers. Carmelo last year almost took the scoring champion away from LeBron James.
Yeah, and so these things are interesting to me because as a dynamic, I want to break it down and say that might work. You have two dominant scorers. Love's obviously bigger. He's taller. He's wider. He's huskier. So down low, you have a good down low scorer.
You have a good down low score, and then he's still going to get you 10, 12 rebounds a game.
And
that's another big area.
And then Carmelo Anthony is just the opposite. He likes to drive it, obviously, but he's not going to post you up necessarily. He likes to pop back and take jump shots. Am I wrong?
I mean, he'll drive to the hoop, but I mean, we've had strategies on how to defend Carmelo like plenty of times in the past. Like we know where he likes to drive, so we're just gonna have to get his feet wet in other areas. But otherwise, he does drive every now and then.
And what I do find interesting is that the dynamic almost seems to work. It almost seems like three great players that are all great at different things.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about that?
It really gives you so many different options to go besides, depending on Rondo, just to pass it to whoever, force feeding somebody to take a shot, someone like Jeff Green or Avery Bradley.
Yeah, and like really the biggest hindrance to me would be the Jeff Green thing. It's like, so you get these three together, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, the defense on those three, it's a little questionable because Carmelo Anthony doesn't like to play defense. Kevin Love isn't really great at defense, and Rondo could be all right when he wants to be, but he does take chances and he does miss assignments.
He takes chances, but I think it's between him and like his two-guy partner where the chemistry has to build up first. Like when him and Bradley are on the floor at the same time, like their defense is like they got a good backcourt defense.
Okay, so ultimately, if you're going to bring in these two guys, big number guys, big dollar guys, you're gonna have to say goodbye to Avery Bradley. You're going to have to. And I know you don't want to comment on it, but you're going to have to probably. Jeff Green is the one that's just an inflated contract to me, and that's the only one on Ainge that I might look back and say, darn. If you didn't give him that dollar, that dollar number on that contract, because he's still got, 3 years left on it or 2 now?
Well, actually, this year technically is going to be his last year coming up, but he does have a player option for next season, so he could...
Which he'll exercise because it's good money.
Because it's going to be the same amount of money he's making this year. It's like $9.2 million.
Which is far too much. Far too much. But... So that's really where he doesn't fit in with me is okay, so what do you do? Because Jeff Green's not the best defender either. So now you're looking at three really, dynamic offensive players, if you want to call Rondo that. So the other two really are going to be utility players. They're going to have to be Ibaka-type players that don't really score, or Perkins, when Perkins was in Boston. They're going to have to be players that are centric towards defense. And, I mean, that's kind of how I see it. If they want to be a championship team, they can't get just two. I mean, they're going to be lower caliber players, but they can't just go get two players that don't know how to play defense effectively. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I know like there are some defensive like-minded free agents that are available out there. I mean, that's a subject for another day. But I can definitely elaborate on how like how to really balance this team out.
Yeah, and so obviously this hasn't happened yet. And maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I do see a scenario where you could have a big three of Kevin Love, Rajon Rondo, Carmelo Anthony with, oh, by the way, Paul Pierce, his contract is expired.
He's open to coming back
in Brooklyn,
too.
And he is, and we've written this and we've reported this, that he's more than willing to come back.
When he was asked during one of the games when he came here with Brooklyn, they asked him if he was interested in coming back, and he just responds, yeah, why not? Why wouldn't I?
And it's a beautiful thing because a guy like Pierce is a team-first guy. He's going to understand that, his role coming back here is probably not going to be on the starting lineup.
I would say, yeah, not as much as a starter, but as like the veteran leader, because maybe there's something Kevin Love or Carmelo Anthony never received from other veterans they've played with, and now they have a chance with Pierce if he does decide to come back, which I am hoping that happens.
So now, ultimately, you could get to a point where you have Carmelo, Love, Rondo with Pierce off the bench. And maybe, you're stuck with Jeff Green, so maybe Jeff Green off the bench right next to Pierce.
Could work.
And the only thing with that is I mean, you'd really like to move Green. You really would. Ultimately, to clear up money and all that it's going to take to get this done, you're probably going to want to look to move Green along with maybe one or two of your first round picks to get a Kevin Love.
I know I've heard a lot of like reports and some stories that like Jeff Green is actually wanted by a few teams that are looking for like a small forward. Like even if I don't want to say inconsistent, but even if he's good one game and then off the next, they're still looking for some type of punch for the offensive line, if you want to call it that.
Absolutely. And actually, we're coming up to our first break of the show. On the other side, we're going to dive into the Red Sox. And I'm going to tell you why Ben Cherington sucks. All right, welcome back. Titletown Talk. Obviously, this is our third show now.
This is, yeah.
Man, time
flies when you have fun.
Yeah, it's really awesome. I mean, we do love being in here. We do love talking sports all the time. But, I mean, because that's what we do with each other when we're at work anyways. So, on to the Boston Red Sox, because they're obviously the only team in season right now. I'm just kind of curious as to what you feel the direction of the Red Sox was this offseason. Because I gave a little teaser going away on the break that I'm going to tell you why Ben Cherington sucked. And I honestly think that he had kind of a bad offseason as far as adding people and retaining people. Because don't forget, he retained Stephen Drew. And it's a whole weird situation that I can't even really put my finger on as to figure out who made the decision to bring Drew back. Because in one way, the day before they signed Drew, you have Ben Cherington coming out and saying, yeah, you know, you need a whole season with Bogarts at shortstop to be able to decide what you think he's capable of. You need to make that decision in an entire season. So that's basically saying the opposite of what they ended up doing, which was signing Drew, and it almost leads you to believe that maybe Larry Lucchino stepped in, decided that they were going to sign Drew because fans were getting impatient. I mean, I think we're like 62 games into the season now, and I'm going to tell you something. I'm out on the Red Sox. I'm out on them. I don't know how you feel. I am done. I don't think there's any hope for the season. I think that they are absolutely horrible. I think that I watched the entire game last night, actually, which was one of the first games I actually got to sit down and watch. They got dusted, and they didn't even look like they thought they were a good team.
I mean, I watched a lot of the Cleveland series as well, and I mean, same thing. Like they just look like they just didn't really have any. I don't want to say they didn't have any desire to play, but there's no spark. I mean, this is not the same team we saw last year.
And
not even close.
And listen, Jacoby Ellsbury's not exactly lighting it up over there, and he's actually injured right now. He's day-to-day.
Which was
I
probably
checked on.
A big reason why.
Which I checked on. Obviously, I'm not condoning the amount of money, the stupid money, that the Yankees paid for him. But I hear all this talk on sports radio as I'm coming in here, or as I'm on vacation this week from my full-time job, which is freaking awesome, by the way.
You are so lucky.
I'm so lucky. And I'm listening. All I'm doing is just listening to sports radio, and I'm thinking, okay, well, everybody's saying, yeah, you need the Red Sox don't have a cornerstone outfielder. They need to draft a cornerstone outfielder. They have nothing coming up in Pawtucket. And that's true, because when I went down to Pawtucket, there really isn't anybody when I was watching that was really blown. They don't blow you away. They don't have, and they have good defensive outfielders, kind of like a Jackie Bradley type, who's been benched now for the second game in a row. But they don't really have any offensive producing outfielders, and it makes me wonder, it's like, if you didn't have an option to come in here and take over that Ellsbury spot, you're the Boston Red Sox. You can afford to keep Jacoby Ellsbury, who came up through your system, by the way.
Yeah.
And has led off your order for, 4 years running now?
For quite a long time. I want to say, about 3-4 years.
He's part of 2 World Series champion teams, and a big part of it. You know what I mean? He's got a career batting average of like 290 something. I mean, he is an on-base machine most of the time. And I don't care about steals like a lot of other people do.
Yeah, I mean, on the side note, he did lead the league in steals last year, which is a good thing.
Which is a good thing. It is a good thing. It's a good because that every time they try to steal Brock Holt, I feel like the kid's getting thrown out. I mean, is it just me?
No, he's getting gunned down.
Let's pump the brakes on that, John Farrell. I don't think that Brock Holt can steal effectively. So why don't you stop wasting steals?
If it's not
and
Brock
outs?
Holt, it's going to be Dustin Pedroia stealing bases, and that's not good either.
And so I start to look. I saw today. I'm wondering, and I'm thinking, okay, let me go back and make sure. Let's see who he brought in. Okay, so we got Drew, who's now had 14 at bats
and one hit.
One hit.
That is why I bashed him last year. I know we said it on the last show, but
we said it on the show before that Stephen Drew is not your answer offensively.
We can't go a show without bashing Stephen Drew.
I don't want to bash Stephen Drew. Stephen Drew is a nice player. He's a nice player, but he's a 9-hitter. And on a team that needed people to hit for them, they brought in the wrong guy.
He's not the right guy.
And who is that? It's Ben Cherington because I don't know otherwise for now, okay? So if he's going to get all the credit for winning the World Series last year, he's going to get the credit for doing an idiotic thing and bringing in Stephen Drew who can't hit on a team that isn't producing runs. I mean, let's be honest. I think they were ranked 24th in runs.
It was near the bottom of the league. It was nowhere near where it should be.
Pierzynski. He was rounding second, I think, in a game, and I only saw the highlight of it because I didn't get to see the whole game. He rounded second when it was like an out. He's just so not invested. He sucks. And I got some numbers. I got some numbers on him. He's got a 273 batting average right now. Okay, he's got 4 home runs on the season, 29 strikeouts in 183 at bats.
That's way too much. I mean, this is going to AJ Pierzynski. I don't think he's even a good battery mate for the pitchers. So I think if the pitchers are struggling, I kind of think he's to blame for most of it.
Yeah, he doesn't frame pitches well. I'll say that. I mean, and it makes you wonder why David Ross doesn't play more. And I actually was on ESPNs.com and I was double checking the players just so I could go down this list or whatever. Do you know that Pierzynski makes $8.5 million this year? $8.5 million. That's why they're playing him more than Ross, who I think is somewhere a little north of $3 million per season or this season.
I could use an $8.5 million pay raise. I'll sit behind the plate and play the way he's playing.
Joe, you could play better than the way he's playing. You deserve $8.5 million on the Red Sox before this schmuck comes in here and makes $8.5 million to suck it up.
But for saying that, Josh, I'll split it with you.
Okay, appreciate it. Jonathan Herrera, who gets the start tonight. He played last night, and he's at shortstop, okay, both games. And so I started to look at, okay, so what has he done throughout the course of the season? He's got a 241 batting average, which isn't good. He's got 16 Ks. And he's got 58 at-bats. I mean, so his at-bats are much more limited. It's a much lower number than Pierzynski, which makes sense.
Right.
But 16 Ks? In just 58 at-bats, you struck out 60? I think it's not horrible. It's not horrible,
but if you look at it percentage-wise, that's a lot higher than Pierzynski if he had more lengthier at-bats.
And the 241 batting average is something that kills me. It's like, when you were constructing the team this offseason there, Benny, didn't you think you might need to get someone that can hit the freaking ball?
Yeah. Instead of...
it seems so easy.
You need... man.
Grady Sizemore, victim number 3. 218 batting average, which just makes me want to hurl right on radio right now. Just right on the air, just hurl. 38 strikeouts in 174 at-bats. He only has 14 RBIs.
I'm glad that he has to, earn the rest of that contract and incentives and not even making.
I know you keep saying that, but I don't care. I don't want him on the field. He sucks.
He's turning more into a liability.
And what they're doing is they sit Jackie Bradley Jr. tonight, who's struggling, who has actually struck out on 8 of his last 10 plate appearances. So they say, okay, we'll sit him, and I'm fine with that. But what the hell has Grady Sizemore done?
This season, absolutely nothing. He wows us in spring training. Guess what? The games don't count.
In June. And I'm saying, what have you done for me lately? Because, okay, I gave you his season batting average, and you think, okay, you know, whatever, that's his season batting average. Maybe he's been lighting it up lately, and he deserves a little bit more playing time. You'd be wrong to think that. He is hitting 2 for 19 in June with a 105 batting average.
That's a very, very poor percentage.
And really, the only young player that's really stepped up for the Red Sox is Xander Bogaerts. And, I mean, as far as the Jackie Bradley thing, I don't necessarily blame Farrell for sitting him or whatever. But,
no, I mean,
but, you know,
it tends to happen with a lot of young players. I mean, they're gonna hit a really bad spell like Bradley has lately.
But his reasoning to me, I'll give you his quote. When asked about the Jackie Bradley sitting, he said, "I wanted to keep Grady in the mix, and I think Jackie needs a little bit of a breather. You get in this ballpark where there's not as much ground to cover, and we feel like we're able to do that with Holt, Sizemore, and Nava, who are the three in the lineup. Sizemore's obviously in center field for Jackie Bradley. Mm-hmm. But I just want to focus on the first part. I wanted to keep Grady in the mix." Well, I just gave you all the numbers, Joe.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the numbers right now.
Why are we keeping Grady in the mix?
Why are we throwing him out there still? I mean, this guy has nothing left in the tank. He's done.
He's done.
I defended him in the last show, but I like to give people benefit of the doubt. But this is now turning into something that just can't happen at this point of the season if you want to repeat.
And I'm going to continue the Cherington bashing, but we're actually coming up to another break, so hold your horses. All right, welcome back. Okay, so to continue on with it, and there's really only one more name that I kind of want to dive into as far as just bringing in additions, because it's not only at the plate. He also brought in Capuano, which I know that you covered back when it happened. And do you remember what you wrote in that article? Off the top, yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah,
it was during the
offseason.
I
I barely remember that. I mean, so many stories between then and now.
So he brings in Capuano, who Max I actually looked up throughout. He's had a bunch of appearances actually. He's had a ton of appearances. So for your dollar, it was probably like a decent pickup. You know what I mean? Just because if he's not coming out of your bullpen, then you're taxing other people. You know what I mean? And so he's a good addition or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, he's being stretched.
But according to the numbers here, I mean, he's only gone 2 2/3 innings. Does that make sense? So in any appearance so far this season, he's only gone 2 2/3 inning as a max showing. Does that make sense to you?
It does, yeah. I mean, to be technical, I mean, you could call that a stretch, considering some of the other teams basically only let their pitchers go like 1 inning at most, or even not even an inning at most.
Yeah, and so there was probably a few times where Buchholz, he's been yanked a few times after 3
innings,
4
like he's been
innings,
pulled
5.
very
Yeah,
early.
and Buchholz is obviously a huge issue, and I don't mean to gloss over Buchholz for people that are listening, because he's obviously a huge issue, and he's a pansy. Okay, so there you go. Is everybody happy now?
Yeah, now he's on the DL.
But what I did want to get into is just because Capuano was an addition that you can ultimately look at and say, okay, Ben Cherington, this is a decision by Ben Cherington. He brought in Capuano and all that stuff. So basically, for the season, he's got a 2.93 ERA. And you got to think about it as far as the innings go. How the heck can you have a 2.23? What did I say? A 2.93 ERA. How can you have a 2.93 ERA when most of your outings are 1 inning, 2 innings max?
Means you're giving up too many runs.
It means you're giving up almost 3 runs every time an inning. Does that make sense to you?
He's coming in, giving up runs, or he's like inheriting all these runs. I mean, either way, he's got to keep the base runners either standing stranded or don't even let him on base whatsoever.
Exactly. So then I look at it, and I looked at it just for the month of May. Because obviously they had a rough month of May. They didn't start well. And it's really just caught up to them. And I think now they're 9 games under 500 or 8 maybe, whatever the updated number is.
They're back now,
they're
plummeting.
Like I said, I'm out. But I look back in the month of May. He had a 4.05 ERA in the month of May. And he had a ton of appearances in May. Most of the appearances, because we're just starting, we're like a third of the way through June now. And in April, that's barely when the season gets going. So
yeah, you're just starting.
So really, the big chunk of time that you really wanted to look at, for me anyways, was May. I mean, is that fair to you?
No, it's a good assessment. I mean, a month's already gone by in the season. Now you should be establishing some ground.
4.05 ERA. So I ask you, and this is just in terms of, because I know that they won the championship last year, and a lot of people were really quick to give Cherington a nod. But a lot of the players, like Bogaerts, I mean, they were drafted before Cherington ultimately took over. And I know Cherington has been a part of a nucleus that's been in charge of baseball decisions for many years now.
Yeah, I mean, for years and years and years, he's been like the shadow of Theo Epstein.
Yeah, and so But ultimately, the say came down to Theo Epstein, and most of that team that he won the championship with, and it's kind of goes back to what people say about Bill Belichick as the GM. They said Belichick won his championships early under the Parcells guys, and so basically
the Pete Carrolls,
under the people that Pete Carroll and Bill Parcells drafted. So now I'm kind of wondering, do we have to kind of start applying that same logic to Ben Cherington?
Well,
it's a tough question. It's a tough question because it is early in his. We talk about this with Bill Belichick because he's been there for 14 years, something like that.
A very long time.
Very long time, and so most of his picks have actually panned out. You've gotten to see, okay, he picked this guy in the second round, third round, first round, whatever you want to say, and this is what the guy ultimately turned into. And we can't necessarily do that right now with Cherington. But I do start to wonder, when it comes to especially bringing in free agents, I start to wonder where his talent evaluation is.
I mean, I've seen it now the last few seasons. Like, even last year when he built that championship team, he's not a big spender.
But built. I think it's just so
from the ground
loose.
up.
He didn't build it from the ground up. I think the built thing is just so loosely used, and it's not your fault because a lot of people were so quick to give Ben Cherington all this praise when the Red Sox won the championship last year, and first off, I wasn't that quick to give it to him, and second off, I don't really understand people that are that quick to give it to him because he inherited a really great team, and he added a few really good pieces. That ultimately helped, but Ellsbury was already there. You lost Ellsbury, and I'm not connecting the dots necessarily because Ortiz, Pedroia, they're not hitting up to what they usually hit. But you lose Ellsbury, and all of a sudden you're 24th in the league in runs scored.
Where does that tie into
It's
place?
a big loss, and I hear all these people droning on about how they have no security in the outfield, and it's like, you did have security. You had a good player who came up through your system and worked hard, and those are the players that, it's like John Lester. Those are the players that you kind of go out of your way to keep and maybe overpay just slightly to keep. And now it turns out Ellsbury got severely overpaid, and obviously the Red Sox aren't going to want to play ball in that kind of thing. But what Ellsbury does is he goes to the Yankees, who's also in your division, and now, honestly, it all kind of like directs my attention towards Ben Cherington because he brings in people, and you lost. Did you really think Sizemore was going to give you what Ellsbury gave you?
Not even close. He's been out of the league for several years. There's no way he's going to be even close to what Ellsbury put up, even in his rookie season.
And we talked about this a lot last week on the show, are the Red Sox too reliant on David Ortiz? It's like, okay, so I'm fine with you giving him the extension. That's fine. Make him happy. Let him just play. But at the same time, was that extension at the cost of bringing somebody in? Because they don't have enough power. And Napoli's a good bat to have back. He's finally back. He's off the DL. That's a good bat to have back in your lineup.
Plus.
It's a big plus. But at the same time, I think they put too many eggs in the one basket of David Ortiz, so it's either David Ortiz or bust. And you'll notice that a lot of the nights that the Red Sox don't win, which is very frequent, David Ortiz only has, one hit, maybe no hits.
And even in the Sunday night game, if they were lucky, they got by when Ortiz bailed them out on that home run.
Yeah, and so they win another game straight off the bat of David Ortiz. And so you start to wonder, it's like, okay, in the grand scheme of things, when you step back and you started building this team, number one, you didn't get enough people who could get on the base. I mean, that's apparent. Batting average and OBP, when you look at any of these guys, then it's not great. It's not. And especially in the batting average, like when he was building the team, I just feel like he did not construct it in a way that they could win. They lost a huge plus on the plate, their leadoff guy for the past several years in Jacoby Ellsbury, and then they tried to replace him with Grady Sizemore or Jackie Bradley Jr. in his first season. Neither one of those was great options. And that's fine if you want to do that, but go pick up another bat in place of third base or something, just in case Middlebrooks didn't work out.
It looks like it's not working out again.
Or get another outfielder, because Victorino, he had some very timely hits, but he's an injury concern almost every season, and career-wise, he's not the best hitter. So even if you want to leave Victorino alone, then you got the other side with either Nava, or now they got Brock Holt there.
Or Gomes, or any
of those guys are just utility players. They're not meant to be your everyday player, and so he had plenty of opportunities. Catcher was the huge one for me. You could have gotten a decent catcher that could hit better than Pierzynski. I mean, come on, please.
Yeah, I mean, granted. I mean,
it's thin. It's thin. It was thin at catcher this offseason. I'll give it to him.
Yeah, it was tricky. I mean, it was either let Saltalamacchia go, take your chance to sign somebody that's aging like Pierzynski, or just roll the dice, pay the man what he wants, and get the same production every year.
Right, and so that's kind of where, I mean, the show's got to end. Unfortunately, time always flies, especially when we start to get really deep into it. But consider this, people, as you're listening. Just go back and think about some of the moves that he made. And we went through almost all of them. But even the additions last year, I mean, they were good additions and they ended up panning out. But I think water sinks to his level, and you're starting to see, okay, this is what Stephen Drew is. And
this is the type of person that he is. And
the best young player right now is Bogarts, who they're completely screwing with right now. To bring in Stephen Drew, who, and I don't know if that's a Lucchino decision, but for now, I don't know. So guess what? You're the GM. You're getting the blame, buddy. I hate to tell you that, but you are.
That's what happens.
And I just look at all these things, and it's like, okay, maybe we didn't strike gold with Cherington as much as we thought we did when we had that immediate payoff. And the same thing goes for Farrell. Maybe we didn't strike gold there because Farrell makes some in-game decisions sometimes that make me wonder.
He's not Bill Belichick. That's
no, for sure. As far as the scheming goes, but anyways, the show's coming up to a close, and appreciate all of you for tuning in. You can always check out our stories at Boston's TitleTownTalk.com. It's a beautiful website, easy to navigate, all that stuff. You can always find us on Twitter at TitleTownTalkSB, and Joe's at Joe Chancellor, just how it sounds. And you can interact with us. You could send us emails on what you want us to cover. TitleTownTalk@outlook.com is the email address, and we'll dive into whatever you guys want.
We don't judge, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll dive into whatever you want. So thank you all for tuning in this week again. We went a little late, so signing off. We'll see you later.